Cincinnati class was a class of protected cruisers built for the U.S. Navy at the end of the 19th century. They were smaller than their previous counterparts and were intended to be used in commerce warfare. They were authorized by the same act of Congress that approved the New York, Olympia, and Montgomery class of cruisers. Built at a cost of $1.1 million each in the New York and Norfolk Navy yards, these protected cruisers displaced 3,339 long tons fully loaded. They were 300 feet 9 inches long, had a 42-foot beam, and an 18-foot draft. They were powered by 6 boilers, powering 2 vertical triple expansion engines, making 10,000 shaft horsepower, which turned 2 screws, propelling the ships to a speed of 19 knots. They had a range of 8,652 nautical miles at 10 knots, and each ship had a crew of 312 men. They were armed with a single 6-inch 40 caliber gun, 10 5-inch 40 caliber guns, making them some of the first U.S. Navy ships to carry guns of that caliber, 8 6-pounder guns, 2 1-pounder guns, 1 Gatling gun, and 4 18-inch torpedo tubes. Armor-wise, they had no armor belt, hence the protected cruiser, and had a deck that ranged from 1 to 2.5 inches depending on the sloping, a 2-inch conning tower, and 4 inches on the gun sponsons. The power plant and armament would change depending on the year and the refit of the ship. Following the American Civil War, the U.S. Navy had begun rebuilding its obsolete, rush-built, and otherwise worn-out Navy with new steel-hulled vessels. The U.S. Navy thus had to catch up on naval technology that the British, French, and other navies, including their own Civil War naval industry, had developed. Trying to explore a wide range of designs, the decision was made to design a small and fast protected cruiser for commerce raiding. In the 1888 Naval Appropriation Bill, the plan was to build 5 of these ships. The first 2 were the Cincinnati class. In May 1889, the Department of the Navy invited proposals for the design and construction of 2 cruisers of about 3,000 tons each and costing up to, but not over, $1.1 million. William Cramp and Sons were the only ones to bid, though they were well in excess of the set limit. Therefore, the Navy said, screw it, we'll do it ourselves, and so they would be built in Brooklyn and Norfolk. Having mentioned the stats of the ships prior to refits, and considering each ship's going to get its own video in which we discuss their service careers in the intervening years, let's quickly discuss the refits that occurred. Cincinnati was refit between 1899 and 1901, and Raleigh between 1899 and 1903. The 6-inch guns were removed and replaced with more 5-inch guns. The torpedo tubes were removed. 8 Babcock and Wilcox boilers were installed, along with more efficient lower-powered triple expansion engines, which would total 8,500 horsepower, dropping their speed to 18 knots. Along with all that, 2 of the 5-inch guns were also removed. As I mentioned earlier, each ship in the class will be getting its own separate video, considering there's only 2 ships in the class. But let's take a very brief look at the service careers of them now. Both fought in the Spanish-American War. Raleigh is credited with firing the first shot in the Battle of Manila Bay in 1898. Raleigh also took part in the Philippine-American War. Cincinnati spent the war in the Caribbean and continued to patrol American interests in the region. Both served in East Asia from 1903 to 1907. Both were decommissioned in 1911. Cincinnati spent 6 years in East Asia, followed by recommissioning and patrol duty off the Gulf of Mexico during World War I. Raleigh was also recommissioned and operated in Mexico and Central America between 1913 and 1916. This was followed by time in yard. After the U.S. entry into World War I, Raleigh operated from Brazil and in mid-1918 joined Cincinnati in the Gulf. In mid-1919, both ships were decommissioned and scrapped in 1921.